Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Namah Pranavarthaye Shuddha-jnanaikamurtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadram Karne Vishnunyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshabhir Yajatraha Thirairangai Shuštuvagum Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swastina Indro Vruddhashavaha Swastina Pusha Vishvavedaha Swastina Starkshyo Arishtanemihi Swastino Brihaspatir Dadatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Last we finished that verse. Mayyeva sakalam jatam, mayi sarvam pratishtitam, mayi sarvam layam yati, tat brahmadvayam asmyaham. That Brahma aham asmi. That advayam Brahma aham asmi. Declared in Uttama Purusha. In gradual unraveling of the knowledge, the Upanishad looks at Brahman and explains the nature of Brahman by saying everything here is Brahman. Everything is Ishvara, and that Ishvara is non-separate from Brahman. There is nothing else. Some Brahma, some Vishnu, etc., etc. And at that, in that verse, it also says, Samaji tells him, Saeva sarvam yad bhutam yatsha bhavyam. It's also in Purusha Suktam, the same sentence. Saeva sarvam yad bhutam yatsha bhavyam sanatanam nyatva tam mrityumatyeti. It is only a matter of knowing. But at that stage, we are still talking of it as a something separate from oneself. One is still saying Sab Brahma, Sam Vishnu, etc. in Prathama Purusha. And then he goes on to say Tat Swamasi, Tat Tvameva, Tvameva Tat. Brings it to the Madhyama Purusha. Hey, Brahmaji is telling the students, including Arshavidyalaya, you are that. You are that Brahman. The student is still assimilating that. That jnanam, Brahma jnanam, can be either apara Brahma jnanam or para Brahma jnanam. Apara Brahma jnanam is what that which is known. We have been always saying that the entire Jagat is nothing but Ishvara. And that Ishvara we look on as something separate from ourselves. Duality, Dvaitam. It is necessary step. It is an absolutely necessary step before we can understand the nature of the self as Advaitam. But we don't stop there. We recognize Ishvara as Jagat Karanam. And then we study Upadana Karanam, Nimitta Karanam, then Parinama Nimitta Karanam, Vivarta Nimitta Karanam, all that, Upadana Karanam, etc. We study, but we're still studying as an object of knowledge. So at that stage, it is still Apara Brahma Jnanam. But because we are studying the Shastra, and the Shastra tells us, you are that. So we seek that Ishvara's grace, with all knowledge, all power, to help us understand that statement. Tat Swameva Tat. That Brahman which you understood as everything. Sarvam idam tatam. That Brahman, Shastra tells us, is you. And with our limited capacity, that knowledge does not become clear. That knowledge still remains Paroksha Jnanam. But because it is told to us that that's not the way to look at it, you have to go one step further and see yourself. So we ask for Ishvara's grace. Like I keep saying in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan talks about Ananya Bhakti. That bhakti is important, bhakti is necessary because we have to earn Ishvara's grace to gain that knowledge. But we step it up one more level and say, I want to gain that jnanam which is matta anyat na. Bhagavan is non-separate from me. So we use these words very selectively, non-separate. Because it is not something which you can physically learn. It is only to know. You cannot separate I and the Sharira physically. If you separate the I from the Sharira, there is nothing left. The Sharira is only Jada. Everything is Jada. You cannot separate it physically, including the Buddhi, non-functional. If Buddhi is not going to be functional, how am I going to ever know? You cannot look for that Ishvara or Brahman in any particular place. To ask where is Ishvara is an incorrect question. The only answer you can give is, where is he not? That's the only answer you can give. But you can say, where is the location of that knowledge? That's why it's a Hitpundarikam, Angushtamatram, in that space of the heart of the Buddhi. You can say that. That's where the knowledge has to arise. So Buddhi has to be alive and active. If the Buddhi has to be alive and active, that means you cannot separate in whatever form we understand that I as Chidabhasa from the rest of it. We have a little bit of a dilemma here. How do I understand this if I cannot separate it? It is not like rice and husk. You cannot separate it and say, okay, that's husk, that's rice. You can't do that. If you do that, nothing is left. So it has to be only a matter of understanding. That Parabrahman is Jnatavyam. That's why Shastra repeatedly says, only Apara Brahman is Praptavya, is to be gained. Param Brahman cannot be gained. So from that third person, Saha, 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 to Tvam, to eventually understanding of I, Mayeva Sakalam Jatam. All this time I thought everything was born from Ishvara or Brahman. That's why when in Kaivalya Upanishad, Bhrigu went to his father and asked, tell me about Brahman, I want to know. Still talking third person. And what did Bhrigu tell him? He said, Ragum Sahovacha, Yato va imani bhutani jayante, from which everything is born. Yena jatani jivanti, which sustains and holds everything. Yat prayantyabhisam vishanti, into which everything becomes laya. Tad vijijñāsasva, learn that. Tad Brahma. A simple definition I give to his son. That Brahman I understand to be, as long as I look at it as other than myself, I can understand. But that is not the knowledge we are seeking. That is only one step in the process. So Ashvalayana here, having gone through all the steps, I've been told the Trishdhamasu, Yadbhogyam, all that is there, but other than that, Tebhyo Vilakshana Shakshi. That Sakshi is you. So when Ashvalayana says, oh, I am that Sakshi. I am that from which the entire Jagat has come. Unless you go through all these steps, if somebody comes new and you tell him, you are the cause of everything here, how can he understand? He is a very wise man. He will say, I am not even the cause of my own son. That is Ishvara. How can I be the cause of the whole Jagat? You mean to say that mountain there is, I have caused it? Yes, you have caused it. You made it happen. Mayeva Sakalam Jatam, Mai Sarvam Pratishtitam, Mayeva Layam Yati. Into me, everything resolves back. What a wonderful example dream is for us to understand this. The entire Swapna Prapancham, including animate, inanimate, big, small, is created by that one knowledge. And when it's over, it all resolves back to that. Fortunately, that will last only for a short time. This Jagat, which is very similar, this Jagat is also ephemeral, like dream only. There is no solidity to this Jagat. There is no substance to this Jagat. So when you say it's Nama Rupa, It has certain characteristics. Everything here has certain characteristics. But it is purely ephemeral. I mean, that means I can't touch the table. You can touch the table with your hand because the same order. But if you look at it from the Paramarthika perspective, there's no hand, there's no table. What are you going to touch? What with what? The pain I feel when I stub my toe on a stone, the stone is real, the toe is real, the pain is real. But when you looked at only from the Vyavaharika perspective, just like if you get hurt in the dream, the thorn pricks your finger or you prick your finger on a thorn, the thorn is real, the finger is real, and the blood that flows is real, and the pain that you feel is real. But is it real? All the world is only ephemeral. It has no substance. Everything is only consciousness. Just like everything in the dream is only the knowledge of the dreamer. That's why we've said repeatedly that in the dream, you can see nothing other than what you have known in the waking state. That means that knowledge is already there. That knowledge is all that's projected. Everything here is also like that. Up to that stage, one can understand. Then you go to the next stage and say this body is also part of the Jagat. It feels substantial. It looks real. My feelings are real, but it is still part of the same insubstantial Jagat. All the universe is only as though created, including the body. Therefore, can I say it is non-existent? No, it is not. It is existent. Seen from one perspective, it is existent. Seen from another perspective, it is non-existent. That is mithya. That's the definition of mithya. Sat asadbhyam anirvachaniyam. So if you say, okay, it is in some form existent, and therefore you say it's created, you say, who created it? So satisfy that question, you say, Ishvara created it. And further vichara, further analysis, one understands that Ishvara, a Brahman, must be an intelligent entity. Because all that's created is very intelligent. You can see that it's all put together extremely intelligently. Therefore, there must be an entity with intelligence. If it is intelligent, there must be a mind. We will see in the next verse. For us, if we have to show strength, we must have muscle, because that's only strength we understand. Muscle power. But what does Bhagavan say? I am the balam in the Balavan. He doesn't say I am the muscle in the Balavan. But that is the way we look at it. That's someone who created this Jagat, in quotes. For our benefit, we give it a name Sanya, and that is separate from me because I am Devadatta. So it's not the same. But that which has created this Jagat as though is only knowledge. Therefore, we don't say Bhagavan is all-knowing. We say Bhagavan is all knowledge. Because all knowledge must be there if this Jagat has to be existent. And everything in the Jagat, like you see everything in the dream, that knowledge has to exist in the dreamer. Here, everything has to exist in that knowledge. Therefore, that is called Nya Ātmatattva. Yapti. When you say Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma, that Jnanam does not talk of knowledge, but the very basis of knowledge. That is Chaitanya. And that Arshavidyalaya is now beginning to understand is I. That Chaitanyam, that consciousness is I. So he says, Mayeva Sakalam Jatam, Mai Sarvam Pratishtitam, Mai Sarvam Layam Yati, Tat Brahma, Advayam Brahma, Aham Asmi. Aproksha Jnanam. Till now, he's still struggling. I'm assuming. I don't know what you are doing, but I'm assuming because he made the statement now. And what is the characteristics of the Brahman? There is no character. How can they be characteristic? If it has characteristics, it must be part of the object of the world, object of knowledge. A characteristic, a quality, if something has, that has to be known. And if it's been known, it is an object. If it is one of the objects of the world, then it has all these following characteristics. It is put together, it's assembly, it will start, it will end, it will deteriorate. None of which applies to one. So he says the next verse, Anoraniyan ahameva tadvat mahanaham vishwamaham vichitram puratanoham purushoham ishaha hiranmayoham shivarupamasmi. I am the smallest of the small. Kathopanishad we saw Anoraniyam Mahato Mahiyam. How can something be smaller than the smallest and bigger than the biggest? Small, big are what? Relative and measured within space. A mosquito is small related to a bee. But a bee is small related to a bird. A bird is small related to a peacock. You can go on. But when you say it's smaller than the smallest and larger than the largest, Tadvat Mahan. I am the largest, same words. Anoraniyam Tadvat Mahan. So what does it mean? Independent of space. You can't put any other interpretation on it. Anything that is within space has to be an object. Of course, the size has dimensions. But that which is defined as smaller than the smallest and larger than the largest. In our scale, an Anu is supposed to be the smallest measurable particle. Anu is loosely translated also as atom. But you know, atom can be further split into so many things. Anu is the smallest particle. And then there's a whole lot of gradation. but smaller than the smallest you can think of. Take numbers. You can make a small number by saying a fraction, 1 by 2. But you can make a smaller number, 1 by 3, 1 by 30, 1 by 3,000. Whatever small number you can come up with. 1 by several zillion. All you have to do is 1 by several zillion plus 1. Smaller. How can it end? There is no end. The same thing other way. Any number you can think of, plus 1. Larger than the largest. Therefore, in the scale, you cannot put Brahman I. I am independent of space. For us to imagine that space did not exist at one point, it's very difficult, because again we think of point in terms of time t1. Tadeva Saumya idamagra asit. Before, we don't know what where before is. Satyeva existed. Not before any time. That Sat, space also did not exist. Time also did not exist. Only Sat existed. Do we understand something like this? So that has to be, vichara has to be done on that. That's only possible if I is the Sat. Then I can think of space as an object, time as an object, just like I think of anything else as an object. An object is perishable. If it is a fruit, it may be perishable immediately, in 2 days. But it's a mountain, it may be perishable in some million years. Still perishable. The only imperishable thing, only thing that is not subject to time, is the reality of I. We call it consciousness. Sometimes we call it pure consciousness. There's nothing pure consciousness, just consciousness. That consciousness I am. I have to be that conscious. There is no other possibility. Mayyeva sakalam jatam, mai sarvam pratishtitam. Mayyeva sarvam layam yati. Tat brahma aham asmi. And if you want to understand me, I am that which is not bound by space, not bound by time, not restricted to any vastu. Desha kala aparachinnaha. That I am. Anuraniyam mahahameva tadvat mahanaham. Aham Vishwam. Vishwam is everything. We've seen this before. Vishwam is what the Tikakara calls Bhuta Bhautika Prapancha Jatam Aham. Sa Vidyam, Sa Avidyam. Bhuta Bhautika Prapancha Jatam. Everything, that which is there and all arises out of avidya only. Everything Aham Vishwam. Vishwam Aham. I am neither the cause nor the effect. Earlier we prayed to Ishvara saying, I am told I am the cause of this Jagat. I cannot understand. How do you understand it? Only when you understand that there is no cause, there is no effect. There is only you. As consciousness, as Sat Chit Anantam. Aham Chaitanyameva. Vichitram. Everything. And Tisatara says Vichitram is Vividam Swayam Ananta Bedavat Ityartha. Tad Abhinnasya Tasya Tat Tava Api Adhunikatvam Adhunikatvam Syadidi Iti Aha. Everything. Vividam Swayam Ananta Bedavat. As though it is many. Vichitram. Variegated. Varieties of. This whole Jagat is relatively new. Science says it is 13.7 billion years old. If you ask them what was there before the 13.7 billion years, there's no answer. We don't say it is 13.7 billion years old. We say a kalpa is much bigger. It is 1,000 Mahayugas. Kalpa is Brahmaji's 1/2 of a day. And Brahmaji lives 100 years. Now you can calculate. Oh, that big. It is not only that big, it is unending. One kalpa goes, there is Mahapralaya, another kalpa comes. Another Brahmaji comes. And within that there are other cycles. Manvantara, mini Manus. So we look at the whole cosmos as cyclical only, or cyclical if you're American. It is not a linear progression. Everything comes and goes. And if everything is coming and going and changing, there has to be something which is absolute, against which you can say something is coming and going. That unchanging avyakta is you. And if in Uttama Purusha, it's I. Anoraniyam mahato ahameva tadvat. I don't change. Everything else changes in relative terms. Aham Mahan, Aham Vishwam, Vichitram, Aham Puranatah. Here, Purana does not mean old. It is, again, time independent. I exist, period. The very existence is I, Brahman. You cannot put a time frame on it. Aham Purushaha. Sarvam Purayati iti Purushaha. That which is everything. Or the other way around, that which everything is Purushaha. And Aham Ishaha. Isha means the Lord. Everything has something over it. Even in an organization, you say he's a junior clerk, on top of him is the head clerk, on top of him there's the supervisor, on top of him there's the manager, on top of him there's divisional head, on top of him there's an MD, on top of the MD there is something else. There's a board of directors, on top of the board of directors is something else. There is never an end. But Ishaha here is that which is the Lord of everything, for which there is no other Lord. He is a ruler. But unlike rulers that we know, there is saying, no, that the one who wears the crown has all the problems on his head. That ruler is not this ruler. There are no problems. This ruler is because of which everything functions as it should. The sun functions as it should. The Vayu functions as it should. Lord Yama functions as it should. Everything functions as it should because of which. You go down, the eyes function as eyes because of which. The mind functions as a mind because of which. That Isha. That Ishaha Aham. And Hiranmayoham Shivarupanishad. Aham Hiranmayaha. Ever shining. Shuddha Chaitanya Swarupam. Self-revealing, for which you don't need another means of knowledge. There is no drik for which. You've seen that. And Aham Shivarupamasi. Shiva can include everything. The easiest translation is auspicious. What is auspicious? Everything that happens is in order. But literally, Shiva comes from the root shi, to sleep, shahine. But means if everything is Shiva. And that which is totally unaffected by anything is Shiva. That's why Shiva is shown dancing in the Smashana Ghat, wearing ashes from the Smashana Ghat, wearing a serpent around him. Nothing affects him. Shiva is everything. Shiva can be Shuddha, Shiva can be auspicious, Shiva can be prosperity. If you look at the dictionary meaning of Shiva, there's probably a whole list. But everything is Shiva. Shivarupamasi. Aham, that Shivarupam. Shivoham. A very popular mantras. Shivoham. Aham Shivaha. And what is, he goes on to expand on this. How do you understand something like this, which makes the mind a mind, which makes the eyes, which makes the balam of the balavan, which makes the intelligence of the intelligent. Buddhir buddhimatam asmi. This is apani pado aham achintya shakti. Pashyami achakshuhu. Shrunumi akarnaha. Aham vijanami vivikta rupaha. He is saying, I am without hands and legs. That little translation. What does that mean? If we say Ishvara is all power, all knowledge, we don't say Ishvara is all powerful. We don't say Ishvara is all knowledgeable. It's all knowledge, all power. For which you don't need hands and legs. If you have to have hands and legs, you can never be all power. You can go to the gym and keep on increasing your power of the hands and legs. How far will you increase? How can you make it all power? It has to be our own concept of power is to do with hands and legs. Our own understanding of seeing is because of the eye. I will go dull. You have to have glasses. 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, soda bottle glasses. It will happen. How can that be all seeing? It cannot be all seeing. One way of looking at it is saying, it is what makes all the eyes see, and therefore all seeing. Doesn't require chakshu. Doesn't require ears to hear. Because we are trying to assign what we know. We know seeing as an act of a seer. Seeing as an act of the seer of an object seen. As long as we have this division, there'll always be limitation. So how do you define that which is limitless? By saying, Pashyami achakshuhu. I don't require eyes to see. Because I'm Shuddha Chaitanya. I'm all knowledge. I don't need any eyes. I don't need any ears to hear. I don't need a mind to know. If you have to have a mind to know, there is a limit to what you can know. I am brilliant. I have an IQ of over 200. Very good. I know a lot. But I can never be all-knowing. As long as an adjunct called mind, will always be limited knowing. Limited knowing, limited power, limited sight, limited hearing, limited thinking. Which is why we say anything that is created by a human mind will have limitations. This knowledge we are seeking, Param Brahma, Brahma Vidya, is knowledge of the unlimited. That cannot be got with simply reading a book or even having somebody tell you. It has to have a pramana. That pramana is Veda. And we have to have a buddhi because that's all we have to know. Our total location of our knowledge is buddhi. Buddhi has its own limitation. Within that limitation, that guru has to unfold the words of the Shastra. So it becomes my own knowledge, aparoksha jnanam. You understand why it's important that people who are self-proclaimed jnanis have to be taken with a pinch of salt. Otherwise, they'll choke your whole system. Otherwise, it'll be like blind leading the blind. Very beautifully expressed in Mundaka Upanishad. Aham vijanami vivikta rupa. Everything I know. How do I know everything? Not because I have a faculty. I don't need a faculty. Aham brahmosmi. Whether you like it or not, even when I said Aham brahmosmi, my hand went here. That preconditioning does not easily go. Aham brahmosmi, perhaps, little better. I am all knowledge. There is nothing other than me. Aham vijanami vivikta rupaha. But na chasti veta mamachit sadaham. I am not bound by time. And our knowledge is only of that which is bound by time, bound by space. Anything which is boundless, we don't know. He says, there is no veta of me. Chaitanya, consciousness. Aham chit chaitanyam. Swayam prakasha. Without any other external means of knowledge. Apadipadu ahamachintya shaktihi pashyamya chakshuhu tashrunumya karnaha aham vijanami vivikta rupaha nachasti veta mamachit sadaham. Our learning, our jnanam comes from three different things. The nature of Atma as vivarta upadhana karma, unchanging, and yet the whole world is created. Unlike our standard example of milk and curd, it is like a dream. The knowledge contained in the dreamer remains unchanging, and yet the whole world is projected. And the locus for recognition of this has to be the brain, buddhi, sometimes called hridaya, which is full of false information, false knowledge, and samshaya. The studies we're trying to do is to try and remove some of that. And to gain this knowledge, in several places we've seen certain basic qualifications are necessary. There has to be an adhikari. Person who is prepared adequately. Otherwise, Our buddhi, which is already limited, has so many things in there, most of which gained from sources which are unreliable. Much of it gained these days from the net. And therefore we draw our own conclusions. No, it is like this. Somebody told me, Swami G, all this incarnation, reincarnation is only because we are humans, we are afraid of death. And in order to overcome this fear of death, we've invented this thing called reincarnation. You will have one more chance. Generally, religions tell you there's only one chance. You either get it in this Janma and go to eternal heaven, or you miss it in the Janma, you go to eternal hell. Only one chance. We don't say that. And his interpretation of the fact that we don't say that is because we are afraid of death. His own interpretation. We'll continue tomorrow. We'll try and finish this tomorrow. And next week we'll have one session in which we will try and address any doubts and questions. So if you have any doubts and questions after tomorrow's class, please send them to Surya or Anand. They will compile them. We'll try and address them the week following. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.